When Jesus died on the cross, the world saw his suffering. They saw his body broken, his blood spilled, his last breath given. They saw him laid in a tomb, and for a moment it seemed as if death had won. But what they did not see, what human eyes could not perceive, was that his work was not finished when his body grew still. No, there was a deeper mission, one that took him to the very gates of hell itself. There's a mystery surrounding what happened in those 3 days between his death and resurrection. But Scripture offers us glimpses of something extraordinary. Jesus did not descend into hell as one defeated. He entered as a conqueror. Where there were chains, he broke them. Where there was darkness, he carried the light of heaven. Where there was hopelessness, he proclaimed the greatest victory ever known. There are moments in life when we encounter a mystery so profound that they demand not just our intellect, but our very souls to comprehend. Some truths do not present themselves plainly. Instead, they are veiled, waiting for the heart that seeks, the mind that wonders, and the spirit that dares to believe. One of the most mysterious moments in all of history is the time between Jesus' death and resurrection, the time when he descended into the depths of the unknown, into the very realm of death itself. To the eyes of the world, the cross was the end, the final breath, the darkened sky, the veil torn in the temple. It all seemed to speak of a tragic conclusion, a life cut short, a mission seemingly failed. The disciples mourned, the crowd dispersed, and his body was laid in a tomb. Silence followed. But silence does not mean activity. Absence does not mean nothing was happening. In the unseen realm, something beyond human comprehension was unfolding. Scripture tells us in glimpses, in whispers of ancient prophecy and apostolic testimony, that Jesus did not simply rest in the grave. He descended into the very depths of existence, into the place where souls were bound, where the weight of sin had kept generations captive. What does this mean? What truly happened in those dark hours? These are questions that have been pondered by scholars and saints, by theologians and seekers for centuries. And while the fullness of that mystery is beyond the grasp of human language, we are given enough to know this: Jesus' descent was not one of defeat, but of victory. Imagine, if you will, the moment when he entered that realm, not as a prisoner, not as one bound by the grip of death, but as a conqueror. The gates of darkness, which had held so many in their grip, now trembled at the presence of the one who held the keys to life itself. The Prince of Peace did not come to be chained. He came to break the chains. He did not come to be silenced. He came to declare freedom. There is an image, an unshakable truth that should stir the hearts of those who hear it. Jesus went to the lowest depths so that no one would be beyond his reach. He walked into the abyss so that not a single soul would have to remain there. He did not merely suffer for sin, he undid the very power of it. He proclaimed liberty to the captives, released those who had long awaited redemption, and shattered the dominion of death itself. And what does this mean for us? It means that there is no darkness too great, no sorrow too deep, no sin too heavy that he cannot overcome. It means that the love of God reaches. There are words in this world that shake the very foundations of what we believe. Words that defy logic, that shatter expectations, that turn mourning into dancing and despair into hope. Among them, none are as powerful as these. Victory over death and darkness. These are not empty words, not poetic musings or comforting phrases designed to soften life's hardships. No, these words are a declaration, a truth so profound that it changed the course of history, a reality so powerful that it reaches across time and eternity to touch our very souls. From the moment mankind fell, darkness sought to claim dominion over the earth. It crept into the hearts of men, sowing fear and doubt, whispering lies that we were beyond redemption, beyond hope. Death became an inevitability, a sentence passed down from generation to generation. It was a shadow that loomed over every life, a certainty that no one could escape. Kingdoms rose and fell, heroes came and went, but in the end, all met the same fate. Dust returning to dust, life succumbing to death. It seemed final, unstoppable. But what if it wasn't final? What if death was not the end, but only the beginning of something far greater? What if the darkness that seemed so powerful was only an illusion, a shadow that could be scattered with a single spark of divine light? What if the grave, once thought to be the ultimate defeat, was actually the stage upon which the greatest victory in all of history would be revealed? The world held its breath in the silence of that moment when all seemed lost, when death appeared to have claimed its greatest prize. But then, against all expectation, against every law of nature and reason, the stone was rolled away. The impossible became possible. Life conquered death, and darkness was driven out by the brilliance of a risen king. This was no mere act of defiance against mortality. This was the rewriting of reality itself. The chains that bound humanity for ages were shattered in an instant. The curse that had ruled over creation since the fall was undone with one triumphant victory cry. The power of sin and death was rendered powerless not through force or might, but through love that would not be extinguished. The implications of this victory reached far beyond that moment in time. It was not just one man who walked out of the tomb. It was hope itself that emerged from the grave. It was the promise that no darkness is too deep, no sorrow too great, no failure too final. It was proof that even in our most broken state, even when we are lost in the deepest night, there is always a dawn waiting to break through. But here is where the challenge lies. It is one thing to know of this victory, to hear the story and marvel at its wonder. It is another thing entirely to live in the reality of what it means. Too many still walk as though they are bound, as though the chains of the past still hold them captive. Too many still live as though death and darkness have the final word, as though the victory was only for then and not for now. Yet the truth remains unchanged. The same power that broke the grip of the grave still moves today. The same light that shattered the darkness still shines. The same victory that was won all those years ago is the same victory that stands before us now, offering freedom, offering hope, offering life that is not defined by fear but by faith. To embrace this victory is to step into a life that is no longer ruled by despair. It is to refuse the lie that we are too broken to be healed, too lost to be found. It is to look at every struggle, every trial, every moment of pain and know that they are not the end of our story. It is to stand unshaken even when the storms rage, because we know that death itself has been defeated. This is what changes everything. This is what takes the fear of the unknown and replaces it with the confidence of eternity. This is what turns mourning into dancing, sorrow into joy, despair into a living hope. And when we truly grasp this, when we truly believe it, not just in our minds, but in the depths of our souls, we will live differently. We will walk with boldness, with peace, with a fire that nothing in this world can extinguish. The victory has already been won. Death and darkness have lost their power, and now the choice is ours. Will we live as though we are still defeated, or will we step into the light of the greatest triumph the world has ever known. There is a weight that humanity has carried since the dawn of time, a burden so heavy that no man, no nation, no empire has ever been able to remove it. It is the invisible chain that binds the soul, the quiet force that whispers of guilt, of shame, of separation from the light we were meant to live in. This is the chain of sin, a bond not made of iron but of choices, not locked by force but by deception. It weaves itself through our thoughts, our actions, our very nature, convincing us that we are powerless, that freedom is beyond our reach. But what if this is a lie? What if the very chains that seem unbreakable have already been shattered? The world has long sought to understand the nature of sin. Some dismiss it as an illusion, others embrace it as inevitable, while still others attempt to conquer it by sheer willpower. But the struggle against sin is not won through human effort alone. If it were, we would have broken free long ago. We have built laws. We have written philosophies. We have designed endless systems of morality to contain it. But in the end, it remains. The chains may shift in form, but they do not disappear. The truth is simple. Humanity cannot break free on its own. The very nature of sin is that it deceives its prisoner, convincing him that he is either beyond hope or in no need of rescue at all. And so the weight remains, pressing down, growing heavier, convincing even the strongest among us that this is simply the way things must be. But there was a moment in history when everything changed. A moment when the chains that had held the world for generations were not just loosened but shattered beyond repair. A moment when the weight of sin was carried not by the guilty but by the innocent. When he who knew no sin took it upon himself, bore its full weight, and then, with his final breath, declared the most powerful words ever spoken. It is finished. At that moment, the chains of sin were not merely broken, they were destroyed. The walls that had separated us from true freedom, from true life, came crumbling down. And yet so many still live as though they are bound. The prison door stands open, but fear keeps many inside. The chains have been cut, yet countless souls continue to carry their shattered remnants, believing themselves to still be slaves. The truth, however, has never changed. The power of sin is not in its strength, but in its deception. It holds no true power over those who recognize the victory that has already been won. To walk in freedom is not to fight for it, but to claim what has already been given. It is to wake up from the lie and see that the battle is over. But freedom is not without responsibility. Those who have had their chains removed must not remain silent. They must go to those who still sit in darkness and declare that the light has come. They must stand among the captives and tell them that their captivity is an illusion, that they are free. Because the greatest tragedy is not that the chains once existed, but that so many still choose to wear them. Freedom has been purchased at the highest cost. And to ignore it, to reject it, is to turn away from the greatest gift ever given. The question is no longer whether the chains can be broken. That question was answered long ago. The only question that remains is whether we will live as free men or as prisoners of a war that has already been won. Darkness is an old companion of humanity. It is there in the silent moments of despair, in the unspoken fears that creep into the heart when the world feels heavy. It hides in uncertainty, in loneliness, in sorrow. It is the great shroud that seeks to envelop everything, whispering that hope is an illusion, that struggle is endless, that the light has abandoned us. And yet, throughout history, darkness has never had the final word. No matter how thick No matter how endless it may seem, light has always broken through. Even in the dead of night, the stars remind us that darkness is never absolute. Even when a storm rages, there is a moment when the clouds break and the sun reclaims the sky. The nature of light is that it cannot be extinguished by darkness. Rather, it shatters it. A single flame in a vast empty night changes everything. But what of the darkness within? The kind that is not outside but inside, the weight of past mistakes, the pain that lingers, the doubts that rise when everything is quiet. That darkness too whispers its lies, that we are alone, that we are not enough, that we are beyond redemption. It tells us that no one sees, that no one understands, that the struggle is ours to bear alone. But this too is false. There is a light that reaches even the darkest places, a light that does not flicker, that does not fade. It is not a distant glow, cold and impersonal, but a presence, near and warm. It does not merely push away the shadows, it transforms them. It does not erase hardship, but it redefines it. In the presence of this light, suffering is not meaningless, pain is not wasted, and even the greatest wounds can become the very places where healing begins for those who have walked in darkness. The light is not just a distant hope, it is a revelation. It is the moment when despair gives way to purpose, when loneliness is met with love, when fear is silenced by the certainty that we are not alone. It is the understanding that no matter how lost we feel, there is always a way home. But the light does not come to us so that we alone may see. It calls us to become carriers of it, to be reflections of the same radiance that saved us. There are others still lost in the night, still believing that the darkness is all there is. To them, the smallest light is a beacon, a reminder that there is more, that there is hope, that the night does not last forever. And so we stand not as those who fear the dark, but as those who know its limits. We walk forward, not blind, but guided by the certainty that the light is real, that it is near, that it is victorious. Darkness does not define us. It never has. The light has come, and that changes everything. The past has a way of shaping the present, weaving itself into the fabric of who we are and how we see the world. The echoes of history are not merely stories to be told, they are living truths that breathe into our lives today. And among the greatest of these truths is the reality of what was won for us, the victory that changed everything. When the weight of the world bears down on us, when uncertainty clouds our vision and fear takes hold, we are tempted to believe that we are alone in our struggles. We convince ourselves that our burdens are too heavy, our mistakes too great, our wounds too deep. We look at the world around us and wonder where hope has gone, where justice has fled, where love has been hidden. But the truth is, the victory has already been won, even if we do not always see it in the moment. There is something profoundly powerful about knowing that the battle is not ours to fight alone. We do not have to carry the weight of our own salvation, nor do we have to forge our own way through the darkness. The path has already been made, the chains already broken, the doors already opened. And yet so often we still live as though we are bound. We forget what has been done. We forget that we are free. To truly grasp what this victory means for us today is to see that we are not abandoned in our trials. It means that suffering is not meaningless, that every struggle, every hardship, every moment of pain has already been accounted for and redeemed. It means that we do not walk alone, even when the road ahead seems desolate. It means that the darkness we face is not the final word. But it is not enough to know this victory in our minds. We must live in its reality. We must allow it to change us, to shape how we see the world, to define how we move forward. We must stop walking in fear and start walking in faith. We must stop believing that we are powerless and begin to live as those who have been given strength. The weight of the past has been lifted. The burdens we once carried no longer define us. And yet, this victory is not just for us. It was never meant to be hidden away, locked within the walls of personal belief. It is a victory that calls us outward, that compels us to bring light to others who are still trapped in their own darkness. It calls us to be healers in a broken world, to be voices of truth where lies have taken root. To live in the fullness of what was won for us is to step boldly into the unknown, knowing that we do not go alone. It is to trust when all seems uncertain, to have faith when doubt tries to take hold, to love when it feels impossible. It is to rise each day, not in fear of what may come, but in confidence that no matter what we face, the victory has already been secured. This is what it means for us today. It is not just a story of the past, but a reality that breathes into our every moment. It is not just a hope for tomorrow, but a truth that transforms today. It is the certainty that no matter how great the darkness, the light has already won. And because of that, we can live, not as those who are lost, but as those who have been found, not as those who are defeated, but as those who are victorious.